The hammer fell once, then again, and with the third strike, the scream echoed through the forge. No one outside heard it. The night wind carried the sound away, and the town slept on, unaware that a single mistake made in a blacksmith's shop would change one poor boy's life forever. Elias Crow was 14 years old when he learned how quickly fire could turn mercy into punishment. He stood frozen near the anvil, smoke stinging his eyes. The glow of molten iron painting the walls in violent orange. The man screaming on the floor clutched his burned hand, rolling in pain, while the forge master shouted words Elias could not hear. All Elias could see was the iron rod he had overheated, the one he had left too long in the fire because his hands were shaking from hunger and exhaustion. That night, Elias ran. He did not pack. He did not look back. He ran barefoot through the dark streets, past shuttered homes and silent shops, carrying nothing but fear, guilt, and the knowledge that poverty had made him careless, and carelessness had nearly killed a man. Long before that night, Elias Crow had learned what it meant to be poor. He was born on the edge of an industrial town, where smoke rose constantly, and the sound of metal never truly stopped. His father had been a dock laborer, strong but unlucky, crushed under a falling crate when Elias was 8. His mother washed clothes for wealthier families, until sickness took her 2 winters later. By 10, Elias was alone, sleeping wherever he could, surviving on scraps and the kindness of strangers who rarely had enough for themselves. The blacksmith's forge had seemed like salvation: warmth, food, work. The forge master, a harsh man named Garrick Holt, took Elias in not out of kindness, but because small hands fit well into tight spaces, and small bodies ask for little pay. Elias swept floors, hauled coal, pumped bellows until his arms ached, and learned quickly that mistakes were punished, not forgiven. He worked until his bones burned. He learned to read iron by its color, to hear weakness in metal by the sound of the hammer, to respect fire as both creator and destroyer. But hunger dulls the sharpest focus. On the night of the accident, Elias had not eaten in 2 days. When he fled the forge, he believed he had destroyed the only chance he would ever have. For weeks, Elias survived on the road, sleeping in barns and abandoned sheds, stealing food when desperation overcame shame. His hands blistered and healed again, as he did odd work for farmers and traders. Everywhere he went, he saw iron shaping the world: tools, hinges, wheels, locks. He saw blacksmiths at the center of every town, respected, necessary, powerful. And he burned with the knowledge that he had failed at the one thing that could have saved him. One cold morning, exhausted and nearly starved, Elias collapsed near a small village he had never heard of. He awoke to the smell of bread and the sound of measured hammer strikes, steady and calm, unlike the furious chaos of Holt's forge. The man who stood over him was old, his back bent, but his eyes sharp. His name was Samuel Braddock, and his forge was small, quiet, and strangely peaceful. Samuel listened as Elias told his story, voice trembling, expecting anger or rejection. Instead, the old blacksmith nodded slowly. "You ran," Samuel said. "That means you understood the danger. Most boys don't." Samuel took Elias in, not as a worker at first, but as a student of discipline. For weeks, Elias was not allowed near the fire. He cleaned, observed, and learned patience. Samuel taught him something Holt never had: restraint. Heat was not rushed. Iron was not bullied. Every strike had intention. Under Samuel, Elias learned that blacksmithing was not about strength alone. It was about listening, feeling, respect. Years passed. Elias grew stronger, steadier. His mistakes became rare, then non-existent. When Samuel's hands began to shake with age, Elias took over more of the work. Villagers noticed the quality. Tools lasted longer. Horseshoes fit better. Word spread quietly. Then Samuel died one winter night, seated beside a dying fire. Elias buried him alone. The forge was left to Elias, along with debts Samuel had never spoken of. Suppliers demanded payment. The village council doubted a young man's ability to keep the forge running. Rivals mocked him. Elias sold his bed to pay for coal. He worked day and night, repairing tools, crafting nails, shaping hinges, taking any job offered. When he could not afford iron, he scavenged broken pieces and reforged them into usable goods. He slept beside the forge, waking whenever the fire dimmed. Hunger returned, but this time Elias refused to let it rule him. One spring, a traveling merchant arrived with news of expanding towns and growing demand for ironwork. Elias listened carefully. He realized that the forge could be more than survival. It could be growth. He began crafting not just tools, but designs others ignored. Adjustable hinges, balanced tools, reinforced wagon parts. He charged fairly, but never cheaply. Quality became his signature. When a wagon axle he crafted saved a merchant's life on a dangerous road, the story traveled faster than Elias ever could. Orders followed. Apprentices asked to learn under him. Elias taught them as Samuel had taught him, with patience and respect. Years later, the forge expanded. New buildings rose. Contracts came from distant towns. Elias hired workers, paid them well, and never forgot hunger. He built storage for winter, safety for accidents, and systems that prevented careless mistakes. One night, long after success had settled into his bones, Elias stood alone at the anvil. He held a glowing rod of iron, steady, controlled. He remembered the boy who had run barefoot into the dark, convinced he was ruined. The hammer fell once, then again. Perfect. Elias Crow became more than a blacksmith. He became a name spoken with trust. His iron built homes, bridges, and livelihoods. His forge outlived him, run by those he trained, rooted in the same principles that saved a starving boy from becoming a ghost on the road. And in the quiet rhythm of hammer and fire, his story lived on, reminding anyone who listened that failure does not end a life. Running does not mean defeat. What matters is where you stop, what you learn, and whether you dare to strike again when the iron is hot.